what we've done here today is produce a report that looks at commercial vacancy rates throughout the country and uses that as a barometer for the general economic welfare of that county, town, etc. So we're using it as a proxy for economic activity. There's more economic activity, there should be less vacancies. And what we see nationally is that it's at 14.6% and has increased. In Clare, it's 16.2%. So, Clare is already above the national average, unfortunately. As you said,
and all
Shannon
three towns included in this report in Clare above that national average.
And all three towns included in the report are above in this report are above the national average. Yeah, that's correct. So what we see is, as you said there, Shannon has seen a significant jump in its vacancy rate. It's gone from 30.8% to 34.5%, which is a relatively large jump. Now, what has to be said is that the number of businesses that we're looking at here is a relatively small number. So a small change of 2 or 3 can have a big percentage impact. So it's a small pool we're looking at, so that has to be borne in mind when you're looking at those percentage jump as well.
We're looking at overall 156, I believe, businesses in Shannon.
Yeah. So there's probably what we have here is 156 businesses in Shannon that we've been able to identify and record what type of business there are, so we can put them in a different sector. There will be more than 156 businesses, but we haven't yet been able to codify them. But we're looking at the ones we've codified, which represents somewhere around 85-90% of the businesses anyway. So it's a very good representation. And of those businesses, we find that 34 of those units, 34.5% or nearly 35% are unfortunately vacant, and not being used the way they were designed, which is unfortunate. When we look even then at sort of the biggest town, I suppose, in the county is Ennis. And I suppose there's a better story there. It's on a better trajectory anyway, in that the vacancy rate in Ennis is 18.9%, but it was 19.3%. So that's come down. So that's going in the right direction. It's still much higher than you would like, but it's still moving in the right trajectory, as I said. I suppose to put in some context here, just at the county level, as I said, Clare is coming in at 16.2%. And the lowest county is Meath, coming in at 10%. So you can see there's quite a large variation there.
And looking at the different sectors of businesses, we're seeing that the services sector occupied over half of the units in County Clare, and we're also seeing that in Shannon there was the second highest share of occupied units allocated to industry at 3.8%. Is the diversity of different types of businesses a concern in any part of Clare that you can see?
Well, what you're trying to do, it's very hard to know, okay, just from the figures. But what we see, generally speaking, is that the service sector leads, and areas with higher level of service sector tend to have lower vacancy rates. Okay, so for example, in Shannon, it's 48% is in services, and across Munster it's 49.5%. So you can see that's 1.5% difference, which would make a difference in Shannon in terms of its vacancy rate. So the more we tend to see that the higher levels of the more industries that are based in services, the better or the lower the vacancy rate is. And that may be to do with how people access and use towns, in that they're not just going for daily shops, that they now are buying online and they're shopping online. Okay, so if they're going to go to somewhere, they need maybe more experienced than just functional. So it needs to have something extra. So the coffee shops and nice places to eat, nice places to hang out, nice places to walk around. That kind of atmosphere is what people seem to value more than they used to, because they can get it cheaper or quicker, or maybe, I don't know, online, or from their point of view they can anyway. Whereas, so to encourage them into towns and stuff, you need to give a sort of a different offering, and many towns are already doing that, and maybe many towns are already doing that, so having a daytime trading atmosphere and a nighttime trading atmosphere. So you're trying to target people at different times of the day with different things to attract them in. So there's not a one size fits all. It depends on the area your work that the town is in, and what surrounds it, and how it wants to attract people in. Like, for example, Shannon has a very high proportion of education, believe it or not, one of the highest in the county. So it has some stuff that is working very strongly in its favour. There's never, rarely is there just one answer. There's usually a multiplicity of approaches that works.
Just finally on that, Dara, you mentioned that Ennis is on a more positive trajectory with its commercial vacancy rate coming down within the last 3 months. The same can be said for Kilrush, according to these findings. That's seen a reduction in its commercial vacancy rate. Do we have any way of telling what direction Shannon is heading in? Could we see that rise further, or can we read anything from these findings of that nature?
Well, we would hope. Well, we don't know. Is the truthful answer? We don't know. We just produce the figures and we just show what we found on a sort of an annual basis. And this is what we found in the last sort of December 24 versus December 25. That kind of the last quarter of the year. And these are the figures that we are producing based on that. And what we're saying is that, well, we don't say why it's happened really. We can speculate a little bit, but we don't investigate why it's happened. What we do is we just record what has happened. And as you said, Kilrush has a positive story, Ennis has a positive story, and unfortunately, Shannon doesn't yet have a positive story.